Alright, to edit an armature, as you know, you have to have it selected and be in edit mode, either by going on top here and clicking on edit mode or pressing the tab key. Alright, so I'm going to zoom in a little. Alright, so you can extrude and add bones. You can duplicate bones by selecting the bones and pressing Shift D to duplicate the bone. Alright, so that's one way to do it. I'm going to undo that real quick. Now you can also extrude the bones, and there's a few ways you can actually go about extruding the bones. First, you need to either have the base or the tip selected, so depending on what you want to do. And to extrude it, you have that little extrude button here. So if you click on that, it put the extrude gizmo on, and you have that little plus, and then when you click on that little plus, it brings out a branch, another bone basically, and it's pointing at the same direction as the actual previous bone. And as you can see, it has bone.001, which is the default naming of Blender. It's something that we're going to remedy in a bit, but all right. Another way to access this extrude, depending on your settings at the initial installs of Blender, the spacebar can be either set to play the timeline or to display this toolbar. So in my case, I've selected that. So if I press the spacebar, I have an exact duplicate of that toolbar right there. All right, so that's another way to actually access that extrude. Another way is to actually go to Armature here and click on extrude, or use the shortcut key that is called E. So if I go here and I press E, I do have the extrude bound. However, this one is not constrained to any axis. If I do want to have that constraint to an axis, I need to simply enter the name of that axis on the keyboard. So either Z, X, or Y. So if I press Z, it's going to constrain it to the Z axis. If I press Y, it's going to constrain it to the Y axis, which is kind of weird looking. All right, as you can see. And if I press the X, it's going to constrain it to the X axis. I'm going to undo all these. All right. So that's one way to do it. Now, if you would like to extrude another one on both sides, you need to have the option X-axis mirror on. Now, I want you to pay attention here to Armature. You have extrude, and then you have duplicate, and then you have fill between joints. So if you have two floating joints, you can select the joint. So for example, if I would delete that bone and I want to select these two joints, go to Armature and then fill between joint, it's going to create a bone there. All right, so that's sort of like a way to bring back a bone. But if you want it on both sides, you have to have that option on here in the tool settings, and it's called X-axis mirror. Now, if you go to Armature again, you'll notice that now we have an extra option, which is extrude forked. So the shortcut key is Shift E, and you do not have a tool for it. So you have to either learn the shortcut or go to the actual Armature panel here and click on it. So I'm going to press Shift E, and as you can see, it extrudes a fork. Now, I don't usually work this way. I prefer working on one side, and once I'm done with all my actual constraints and drivers, I then simply name them and all, and then from there I symmetrize them so it gives me both sides with perfect name and duplicates on the actual constraints and drivers that I use. But you can still do it this way if you want. Now, after that, you simply need to either press E or use the extrude gizmo to extrude some extra bones. Now we can also merge two bones by selecting the actual little dot and going to Armature and then delete and choose the dissolve. Now you can alternatively press X and choose dissolve, or directly press Ctrl X and it's going to merge the two bones together. Now you can also select a bone and actually subdivide the bone. Now there's no shortcut key for it here, so you have to go to Armature, and there's no shortcut also assigned to it, so you have to go here and choose subdivide. And then you're presented with that little panel. And then from there you can specify the amount of cuts. Now, as you notice, we're still in X-axis mirror, and it will do that with any bone selected, and it will mirror it. All right, just keep that in mind. Alternatively, you can also subdivide by using the right-click menu if you have it enabled, and use the subdivide. And again, you're presented with the actual number of cuts. All right. So now if I go into pose mode by pressing Control Tab or going here and selecting a bone, now as you notice, there's already a parent-child relationship to it, except this one, because we've actually brought it in, so we should actually rectify that. So if you select this bone and then shift select that bone and then press Control P and then choose connected, it's going to connect these two bones together. So now if I go back into pose mode by pressing tab or going to pose mode here, then now they're connected. There you go. Now, alternatively, you could want this to actually be there and this be sort of like a neck. So if you go into edit mode, you can actually unparent this bone. To unparent this bone, you press Alt P and choose clear parent. And now if I go back into pose mode and rotate the hierarchy, the bones are no longer parented to it. Now if I go back to edit mode and select this bone and then shift select that one, for example, and press Control P and choose connected, it's going to jump to it. If I don't want that, let's undo that and press Control P, I would choose keep offset and stay. So now if I go to the pose mode and rotate this bone, this is not the parent, or it's actually not the parent at all of these two, but this one is. All right, so in some ways, sometimes you would want something like this, maybe not for a character, but this is to show how to actually change the parent-child relationship. Now, another thing that you need to be aware of is that the parent-child relationship also have some options. So if you go to the bone itself and go to relation, you'll notice that each bones do have a parent-child relationship right here. Now you can specify if you want to iterate the rotation or not of a bone, if you want to iterate the scale and not of the bone that it's parented to. And so you do that here. So for example, if I select the bone here and choose iterate rotation, when I grab this bone and rotate it, you'll notice that it does not rotate with it. Essentially, if you do not want any scale, same thing should happen for this one, as you can see. And inevitably, the bone connected to that one will also not inherit the scale because it's inheriting the scale from this bone. Right? And you can do that in pose mode as well as in edit mode. It really doesn't matter. All right, so that's how you edit those bones. Okay, so let's see, I would like to name this and put that on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and select these bones and I'm going to delete them. Oh, not at all. Let's make sure that x-axis mirror is no longer on. All right, so now let's delete these bones. Now, this is my back. All right, so that should be the front. Let me undo a few times. So this is the front, so you got to make sure that you're in front. I just want to mention that it doesn't matter if you're using the positive or negative Y for your front or your back. It doesn't matter as long as you're not using the X or the Z axis, because the mirroring only happens on the X axis and not in any other axis in terms of the tool mode here. All right, so just keep that in mind if you're using both sides or if you're going to mirror something. It really doesn't matter which one is your front, as long as you do set the model and the rig accordingly. So I'm going to take out these bones, delete these bones, and then I'm going to rename these. So this, to rename, you have to go to the bone, or you can actually do it in here if you want to, but I prefer going here. So I'm going to call this one L_ for left. And this is going to be the forearm. If I could type. And then this one is going to be the arm. So L_ arm. And this one is going to be the clavis. So I'm going to L_ clavis. Now, if I would want that on the other side, I simply need to go to Armature and then choose Symmetrize. As you can see, it takes care of switching the naming convention from left to right. So that's how you get that on the other side. Now, if I would have some constraint already set up on this, as well as drivers, it would actually symmetrize those as well, which is very useful. So I usually rarely, very rarely, do you ever use the X mirror option when I'm actually creating a rig. So just keep that in mind. It's easier to just work on one side and then symmetrize it on the other side. Now you can also change the role of a bone by going into edit mode by pressing tab, and you'll notice here that you can change a radius, but you can also change a role. The role is the actual orientation of the bone itself. All right, so it's very important to keep in mind because sometimes you need to have them facing the same direction of another bone. Now you can edit them by also pressing Ctrl R, all right, or going on top here under bone row. You can actually create a bunch of different types of roll that you have here, a bunch of good options. Now, more often than not, I'll use the global Z-axis. For no particular reason, it usually works for my rig, so maybe you can try different ones depending on the type of rig that you're doing. But that's basically all you have to know in terms of editing an armature. From there, it's going to be how it's going to behave and how many bones and all that.